Hello here, and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online Show. It is game week. We are here. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, chomping at the bit to get on the road, get to Minneapolis, boys. Drive up, get a good steak Wednesday night, watch a football game Thursday. And we got a jam-packed weekend. We'll introduce our post-game show back after the game.
Oh, boy.
Hopefully a victorious post-game show, and you can watch that live. We're shooting for about a midnight-ish start time. A lot of it depends on Sipple in the world-class writing he brings to Husker Online.
We all just go at his pace.
Come on. Really?
I mean, when you
Is
work
that the way
with,
you guys break it down?
when you work with,
I didn't know this, by the way. It's just breaking news on
when you work with the greatest
Husker
writer in the world, you gotta accommodate the showtime and make sure
Sean,
those words get tight.
the slowest writer in the world.
But we will be live after the game, rain or shine, win or lose, for about an hour-ish after the game. So it could be a late night, a fun night, though, hopefully Minneapolis. But we're looking forward to it. I mean, I think we've all been – I felt like the last week at camp, like, okay, let's just play a freaking game.
Yeah. Just when you kind of think you know a lot, something happens and you're like, my God, have I not been covering this team from – I thought for sure, for instance, MJ Sherman was a black shirt.
Mm-hmm. I thought he was going to be like a captain.
All right, we don't want to totally expose ourselves.
A single take it a step back, a single digit maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even that.
Yeah. So I'm sort of amazed sometimes. Another thing, you guys probably live this too. You take one day off. I come back and I feel like I'm covering another team.
On your day off, though, Sipple did change his own oil on a motorcycle.
I did a lot of stuff on my
Saved him
motorcycle.
about $500 is what you paid to get an oil change professionally on a motorcycle.
Yeah, I'm supposed to say professionally. Yeah, I saved. And plus I had my shift was awry, and I fixed that. So with the help of
taking your phone calls here on Mechanic Hour. Lines are open.
Car talk.
Jammed a hockey stick where the shift is, then crowbarred it out, and it's perfect now.
Yeah.
So let's talk football.
I'm with you. Like, this last couple of weeks, though, have been interesting. Like the sudden rise of Deshaun Singleton. Obviously the rest of the single digits that we've seen. The fact that Nick Henrich wasn't among the black shirts, or so there's along with MJ Sherman. So there's a lot of interesting storylines there that we'll see. We're going to talk to Matt Rule later this week, maybe get a little bit more clarity on some of that stuff. So, but for now, all those like off-season things, there's a bow on it now. Now it's time to talk about an actual opponent, and they're going to play a real game, and I, for one, cannot wait.
When Twitter does make announcements and things a little bit easier, like all these single digits get announced on Twitter, so you don't have to like
work,
right. Pepper them to give you things, and they may not be in a great mood one day, and just they're not great about giving you information. But the black shirts, we did learn the black shirts as well, and you mentioned that on MJ Sherman. 11 black shirts handed out. There were oars on the depth chart. None of the oar positions had 2 black shirts, so they just went with 11. And kind of a very conservative approach. I think the get off my lawn traditionalists like to see just 11 black shirts. I thought we could see maybe 13. Nick Henrich would be one, and then MJ Sherman, would be other. I can see why Cam Leonard didn't get one. True freshman, has never played it down at Nebraska. Make him earn a little bit before you put him in a black shirt.
Yeah, speaking of get off my lawn, people. I like the 11. I just like just start it with 11.
Mm-hmm.
Make some other guys earn it, I guess. 11. If these are probably your 11 starters, and it makes sense. Again, there was those 2 surprises really caught me off guard. God, I hate to say that because people don't like to hear us say stuff catches us off guard.
Well, Henrich might be hurt. We think.
Yeah. So, and again, I think that's what we want to figure out here. But I remember listening to Tony White earlier this fall when he was asked about the black shirts and kind of his philosophy with it. And he said that he leaned heavily on the old school black shirt guys like Charlie McBride and the Bullocks twins, and guys that
Bullocks
were part of that. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. But like guys that had been around and been black shirts and been part of that, and like cared about that tradition as much as anybody. So I think that's probably why they're sticking with 11. Maybe they're trying to get back to the original origin of what the Blackshirts were, the 11 starters on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to give up 17 like they had when literally the entire two deep had a black shirt. So I personally like it. I know a lot of other people too. And sure, there's guys that are deserving of them, I'm sure, and they're going to play a ton of snaps. But the Blackshirts were supposed to designate your starting defense. And if that's your starting defense, those are the guys that need the shirts.
Well, and maybe Reimer is the Mike and Bullock's the Will.
Right.
And Henrich plays Will, or Mike, excuse me.
Well, I think Sean, I do think they move those guys. They're
interchangeable.
Pretty, the Mike and Will are pretty interchangeable. I think that's what you'll see. I'm not getting in that trap where I'm locking guys in. They're going to move them around.
Yeah, this is not 1987 5-2 defense. I mean,
Right. Seriously, we have to remind ourselves that.
Well, and I think the Blackshirts in general, it had become it went down its own road where it became this like psychological warfare game with coaches and how and when and what they were going to do with them. No. That was never the tradition of the Blackshirts. When they sent the Bob Devaney assistant coach to the sporting goods store in downtown Lincoln, it was to get shirts to identify the starting defense in practice. And they got a discount on black jerseys. And that's how they came up with the Blackshirts. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. But it was never about like you have to be, this type of player to get to wear one. It was always the starting defense in Nebraska. So I do respect that Rule is honoring it, at least to that level of what the tradition really is.
Right. It got a little funky. I mean, it was easy to do the 11 and this is what it is when Nebraska was really good, right? And there was really, they didn't give up 64 to anybody. And then you're like, what are we going to do with this black shirt thing? Because Melvin Gordon just ran for almost 500 yards. So now what do we do? So there weren't things like that came up. You know what I'm saying? Texas Tech didn't put 70 on Nebraska back in the day. And then they did. And now what do we do with the black shirts? Because then you have this hue and cry in the fan base. How can you call them black shirts? Take them away. Put them in pink shirts. You heard all that stuff, right? So it was easier back in the day for Charlie McBride to manage it. And then it got kind of weird, right?
But then they started like trying to get too into the weeds with it to where like they have to meet a standard and no one knew what the standard was. And that standard varied from year to year, coach to coach, defensive coordinator, to where it almost like lost all of its meaning in a lot of ways.
Pelini didn't hand them out one year till November.
Right.
I mean, remember that?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's lost its meaning along the way here. It really has. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Now, it used to when Nebraska used to go to bowl games, I used to like that all seniors on defense would always get a black shirt. That was a cool tradition.
Alex Henry got a black shirt.
And specialists like punters, because they were equally as big to the defense as anybody, the way they placed the ball. So that was always something cool when they would go to a bowl game. We haven't had to cross that bridge.
Yeah, and hopefully we won't have to have these kind of strange discussions about the black shirts this year, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Right.
That they're not giving up 70 and we have to reevaluate things.
Right.
Hey, guys, the defense is going to be the strength of this team.
Sure.
I believe that.
It seems like
8 of the 10 single-digit voted players are defensive players. All of those guys are grown men, 4th to 6th year type players in college. There aren't any pups in those single digits if you look at it. And even on offense, Jeff Sims, 5th year, Billy Kemp, 6th year, Ethan Piper, 5th year. And
what happened in the August, what we saw was the defense, I mean, based on what we heard, get an upper hand during the month of August. Tony White's demeanor was that of a coach who had the upper hand. Marcus Satterfield's demeanor was fine, but it was not as confident as Tony White. So, and then Rule saying at one point before first words after a scrimmage were, well, the defense dominated the scrimmage. So, yeah, I think the defense had a good August from what we heard, from what we saw with the jerseys that you're alluding to. So now what will it look like against Minnesota? That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to stand out against your own offense, but now you got to play somebody for real.
Yeah. Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk offensive storylines. We'll get you ready for Nebraska, Minnesota, and offensive things to watch. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, getting you ready for Thursday's Nebraska, Minnesota game in Minneapolis. Huskers have not beaten the Gophers since 2018. Before we get into the offensive storylines, the segment of the Husker Online Show, and welcome our newest sponsor, on for the entire football season. CHI Health Clinics and CHI Health of Nebraska sponsoring us here this year. And I want to tell you about my experience with CHI Health in general. I personally use the clinic in Lincoln on 40th and Yankee Hill Road. Their brand new facility. It is awesome. I mean, just all the services they can provide there. You can get your regular annual checkups done there, which I do every year, blood work done, x-rays. They have a pharmacy located inside there. But here's the best thing. They offer primary care where you can just walk in anytime from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. So I can tell you many times on the weekend when you're not feeling well, I've been able to utilize that and get immediately put on prescriptions and things. So I'm going into Monday morning ready to roll, because doing this job, as you know, there aren't too many backup Steve Sipples or Sean Callahans or Robin Washetts. You got to work through it. We've done it before, Steve Sipple.
Yes, we have.
So thanks again to our newest sponsor, CHI Health. And particularly, I want to talk about, once again, their clinic on 40th and Yankee Hill Road, and just all the great services they add there. Thanks again to CHI Health. Looking forward to working with them here, guys, throughout the season. But let's get into offensive storylines now for Nebraska as we head into this game at Minnesota. And I want to start first with Jeff Sims, because it's a little bit all over the map. What are your expectations for Jeff Sims in this opener? And these are such hard questions. Like, what will his rushing total be? What will his completion percentage be? I mean, those are hard things to answer
right out of the gate. Now, I'll sound like an old coach, I guess, but you just want to see him get the guys to the line of scrimmage on time.
The operation.
Yeah, the operational aspects. I want to see what he looks like at operating the offense. You take that for granted, but you shouldn't. So I want to see what his presence is like, and then accuracy and decision-making. It's really about that to me. I mean, a lot of it's decision-making with him because he has all the raw talent in the world. Mm-hmm. So it does come down, a lot of it, to what kind of decisions does he make with the football.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about this on the chat a little bit this week, but one of the things I kind of expect is for Nebraska to try to keep things as simple as possible for him with their play calling, to where he's not sitting back in the pocket for 5-7 seconds and having to go through all of his reads. It's going to be catch, read, ball out, and
sticky routes,
and the running element. I think they have to incorporate that part of it. He's too good not to use him as a runner, but I think what I don't want to see is, things don't go well and all of a sudden they start Adrian Martinez in it, where the only way they can move the ball is by doing QB draws and, using him like a workhorse running back. So the balance of using his dual threat ability while also keeping him out of danger's way, that's what I want to see. And then also just with the passing game, how simple they make his reads to where he's not having to overthink things on the road against a conference opponent.
I agree with. Here's what I really think Nebraska will play it close to the vest in the opener. I think Minnesota will too. I don't think you want to make it too elaborate right now. I don't know if Nebraska's ready to be elaborate. So the other thing I'd say is look at. I mean, I think there's always a temptation that a coach has, like Satterfield, when you have a quarterback that looks like that, or you have a quarterback that looks like Adrian Martinez. There's a temptation just to load him up, right? Look at him. I mean, you got to sort of resist this temptation that Robin alluded to. Tough situations, 3rd and 4. Just hike it to the quarterback and follow the lead blocker and see what he can do. I wouldn't do a lot of that. I just don't think it's sustainable.
No. Yeah, 4 or 5 games in, it will be interesting to kind of revisit how they run Sims. And because it sounds good right now to say we only want to run him selectively and when it makes sense. But when you're 3rd and 7 and that's your only way to get 7, what are you going to do? Not run him?
That's what I mean. There's a
sure Frost's plan was not to run Adrian Martinez like that, and then they couldn't do anything else, and so they had to go to it.
I think we agree that if it all shakes out at the end of the season and Sims is the leading rusher for Nebraska, it probably won't be the kind of season you want.
That's a problem.
Or he may not be healthy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that formula has already played itself out every year at Nebraska, where the quarterback has gotten hurt literally almost every season when they've started to run them in this league. When you're playing against NFL level players on defense,
that's what this is.
And you have play counts that are like Frost's teams that are pushing 80 to 100 plays a game. That's a lot of hits. That's why on Sundays they only play 60. Those pro guys can't take 100 of those hits.
Yeah. And what I think what you're alluding to is scouts will say that this is the closest NFL evaluator, the Big Ten. The Big Ten is the closest.
SEC too.
Big Ten more because it's a bigger, more physical league. A little bigger, but a little more physical than the SEC. I personally think the SEC is a better league, but I think the Big Ten is bigger and more physical. So it just makes sense not to throw your quarterback into that situation too often. Got to pick your spots. I think they will.
Now, Gabe Urban Jr., speaking of bigger, he's 220, 225 pounds heading into this opener. He'll be the starter at running back for Nebraska. His career high in carries is 12. His career high in rushing yards is 60. I think we probably all agree he's going to have more than that in this game, or he'll need to have much more than that for Nebraska to have a chance.
I expect the overs on both comfortably.
More than 12 carries.
Yes.
More than 60 yards.
Will he get more than 20 is the better question. Or is it going to be in the high teens?
That might be pushing it. I'm looking at high teens.
Well, it just depends on how many plays they run.
Right. Because I don't think they're going to run a lot of plays,
Right.
and I think they're going to have other backs in there.
Right. 17 carries might turn out to be a lot if they only run 55 plays.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how it's going to shake out. I don't want to make any predictions. I got to see it. He's never really done it. I mean,
it's the situational value too.
Really hasn't.
Yeah, a couple games as a freshman.
Right.
It's the situational value of those carries. Can he get them on schedule on first down carries? Can he convert third downs?
Absolutely.
You know, if he can get 3rd and 1s, I don't care if it's only a 1-yard gain. That's situational football, and Nebraska's lack that at times.
It's because I totally get what you're saying, but I don't like it when we say if he can get that. It's not him. He's got to get blocked. They got to move the line of scrimmage.
Right.
We haven't seen a line move the line of scrimmage consistently for I don't know how long. I know I would sit up there and go, well, at least they got a stalemate.
Frost's first year, they did at the end.
Okay.
I mean, they went into Ohio State and moved them. I was like, whoa, this might work. You know, the way they went in there, and Tanner Farmer and Gerald Foster and those guys were
good
pushing.
Point. They were moving the line of scrimmage then. That's probably the last time. Consistently. Sure, they would do it sometimes, but that's what I want to see. You can't evaluate running backs in a vacuum. Everything around them feeds into it. So let's see. What I want to see is these running backs get more than what's there. I mean, that's the true. I mean, if you're really going to be a good running back, if 4 is there and you get it, okay, that's fine. You could probably, there's a lot of guys in the Mid-American Conference that can do that. The separators are the guys that get 9 when there's only 3 there. Amir Abdullah did a lot of that. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Remember against Miami? There was nothing there against Miami. How many yards did he get? I mean, a lot.
And that was kind of the knock on Grant last year. Like, he would get what was there, but like that ability to make a guy miss in space, he only did it like maybe a couple times that I remember. And so like he had potential to get a lot more yards than he did if he was able to make someone miss on the next level. So that area needs to improve. But I think the traditional running game is concerned, it's about, like Sean said, getting 3rd down, converting 3rd downs, short yardage situation. But it's also on 1st down, you want to set up 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4.
Right.
To where you're working ahead of schedule.
Right.
And guys, briefly, as we wrap this discussion up, the tackle play, Bryce Benhart, Turner Corcoran. I mean, what kind of improvement are you looking for out of these guys? I mean, I'm not expecting this to be like the world's best tackles, because we kind of know what these guys have been the last couple of years for Nebraska, but can they be improved? I mean, that's the question. And how much more improved are they from what we saw the last 2 years, which was the worst pass protection grades in Power 5 football on Pro Football Focus. And those guys get mad at SIP and us but
they do.
We're looking at the metrics. Like, why? I mean, why is it?
I don't need a PFF grade to know that they weren't playing well.
And Robin has his own grade.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's kind of the thing where the bar is set so low, you would hope that they're better. Yeah. And by all accounts, I do think they're going to benefit from continuity to where they're being taught the same thing from one year to the next under Raiola. I think that's going to help. And I think that they're going to have an offense that's going to protect them a little bit better, to where they're not going to sit there and, go from 1 week to the next having a totally different offensive identity.
All right. When we come back, we're going to switch the conversation back over to the defense. How will Minnesota come at the Huskers? You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut talking now defensive storylines as we get ready for Thursday night's game at Minnesota, Nebraska versus the Gophers. 7 p.m. nationally televised game on Fox. But before we get to that segment also of the show, brought to you by another new sponsor here for the entire football season. Pleased to bring on Bauer Underground. Bauer Underground is helping shape Nebraska's infrastructure's future and is looking for new members to join the team with open positions for laborers, equipment operators, aerial linemen, and foremen. Bauer Underground is searching for the best construction. Visit BauerUnderground.com to learn more about career opportunities and industry-leading benefits, including competitive pay, employee-paid health insurance, dental, disability, vision, and life insurance, 401k match, new top-of-the-line equipment, and clothing allowances. No experience in underground utility construction? No problem. Bauer will train the right people in the field, giving you the hands-on experience you'll find to build a long, rewarding career. Want to learn more? Visit Bauer Underground on Facebook to view the testimonials from our current Bauer teammates, hear about their experiences, the company culture, and the importance of their work. Bauer Underground is family-owned with crews and work sites across Nebraska. Where you live, Bauer has an opportunity for you. For more information, like Bauer Underground on Facebook or visit BauerUnderground.com. Come start your new career today. All right, gentlemen, let's get into it now, talking defensive storylines for the Huskers going out to Minnesota. And I think the biggest thing is this scheme. I mean, what will the first dose of Tony White's 3-3-5 defense look like? And PJ Fleck already at least has looked at it for a whole year before because he played Syracuse in the bowl game.
Yeah, I do think that it could be an advantage for Nebraska. I think you could see confusion from Minnesota early. The question is how will Minnesota – I think it'll be how quickly does Minnesota adjust. My guess is it'll be pretty evident to the naked eye that there's some confusion early. I think that White will try to do that. It makes sense. Nebraska will move guys around. Hell, they confuse the Nebraska offense in practice. Nebraska's offense sees it every day. They still confuse them. Mm-hmm. So I do think that'll be a factor. Am I wrong?
What do you guys read into the note about Minnesota's new co-defensive coordinator, Nick Monroe, who was at Syracuse on White's staff and served as their defensive coordinator in their bowl game? How much do you think that will reduce the element of surprise on their end, given that he probably knows or has an idea of what White's going to try to do better than anybody?
Yes, I think I definitely think I could help, but White did not run the 3-3-5 with this set of personnel.
Mm-hmm. That was my answer in the chat.
Yeah, I think that
he didn't have the size on the defensive line like he has in Nebraska. He didn't have Ty Robinson and Mash Hutmacher at Syracuse.
Personnel will determine how you do certain things. So I think it's still an advantage. I think it can be an advantage. I'll be interested to see how much it comes down to. But it comes down to how does Nebraska hold up front?
Oh yeah,
pretty much against Minnesota on both sides of the ball. Question. Yeah, on both sides of the ball. That's where your eyes should be most of the game. I think. How is Nebraska holding up front?
The key with the 3-3-5 is where is the fourth/free rusher coming from, or even the fifth?
That's it. Yeah,
and can you confuse them where they don't know?
Right.
And then that confusion creates negative plays that you win downs. Then it helps you kind of reset your second and third down calls if you win downs.
Yep. So,
but on the flip side, you might give up a home run.
It's been a good month. Again, we established that in a previous segment. It's been a good month for that unit. Now let's see under the lights what it looks like, because they're going to be challenged. Now the good news, in my opinion, is Minnesota's strength. To me, this is not Mo Ibrahim anymore. This is their strength. Chris Ottman, Bell, Brevin Spanford, not just those two. They have a good bunch of receivers and a quarterback now that can really throw it, has a strong arm and is going to take chances.
Runs the zone read.
The good news, I think, is that Nebraska's strength is their secondary. If you can get some semblance of rush on Callie McManus, then you should be okay, because the Nebraska secondary is pretty good, I think. I mean, if I could be wrong, but I think they feel really good about it, especially the corners.
It's interesting, guys like Deshaun Singleton and Omar Brown. I felt like a year ago they should have been a factor, and they weren't. Now they're starters. And how about for Omar Brown making his homecoming to Minneapolis? He wasn't recruited by the Gophers. And when we did our interviews a year ago with those guys, he brought that up to me. Yeah, that game is always going to be on his mind, playing Minnesota, because these guys didn't recruit him coming out of high school, and he's from the city of Minneapolis.
So he was asked about that this fall, and he downplayed it, just kind of doing the coach speak type thing. But, that day when he did the show with Sean, I talked to him off to the side too for a story for our site. And I asked him that, and I can tell you this game means everything to him because he's a Minneapolis kid and he grew up wanting to play. He went to camps and they just slow played him and slow played him and slow played him, never offered. So he ends up going to Northern Iowa. And so when he got this opportunity in Nebraska, being able to play Minnesota was a big deal. And now he's going to go up there. He's going to have a ton of friends and family at that game. So that one's going to mean a lot for him. So you want to talk about guys with a chip on their shoulder? And when you're looking for X factors, keep an eye on Omar Brown.
One Sip, you know this. These guys, they know rules listening to these comments and whatnot, and he pays attention. So Omar Brown, like Robin said, he's going to downplay it, but we've heard him speak on this before.
Oh, and you see it. Like that's the one thing that you couldn't really get was like the deep breath before answering, like, you know, those little whatever tweaks, whatever. But he definitely has something to prove for PJ and crew.
You have to rein it in. You have to rein that in. But I'm sure he'll be fine.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show as we talk more defensive storylines heading into this game in Minneapolis. Yeah, the Nick Henrich storyline will be fascinating. Not in a black shirt. That's kind of a surprise because he was a captain a year ago. They're not going to name captains. But I do believe Nick might have got hurt, and that will be something to kind of track. Like, what will his status and availability be out in this game? And, you know, the Big Ten is going to require teams to release availability reports 2 hours before kickoff. So Sipple and I have already assigned Robin to write that report for every game.
Let's go. Absolutely.
Just the Big Ten. It's just the Big Ten that's doing this.
Sponsored by Harris Casino.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it, you know, why they're doing it. I mean, I was reading about it. Me and Sean were doing the show Friday, and it had come out. You didn't really know exactly why, although it's generally a common sense discussion. And LSU, by the way, not in the Big Ten, but they're releasing injury reports bi-weekly. And the reason that Kelly's doing it is because he thinks it will stop outside people from peppering his coaches and his players for injury information. That's on his mind in this new kind of day and age we're in. He said, now it's interesting. Brian Kelly said, he goes, I don't know that that's happening or has happened, but we want to be proactive.
Yeah.
I would say at Nebraska, I'm just going to say I wouldn't be surprised if it's happened.
I'm sure it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're a major college football program,
yeah,
especially in a place like Nebraska, people want to know everything, especially about injuries. Yeah. What I would appreciate is if we could just go back to the Mike Riley policy, where every Thursday he would take the podium, like, all right, guys, want to start with the injury report, and he would just go off and list everybody who was injured that, you know, could or could not play and give a status.
And then what? He would ask if he forgot anybody.
Hey, Sip.
He wouldn't ask me, but he would ask the beat guys if he forgot anybody.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean,
yes.
I personally love that approach.
Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of interesting storylines defensively. Bullock is an interesting storyline. He hasn't played regular downs.
Singleton.
Yeah. Singleton has played regular downs.
69.
Bullock, I don't think has played any. Am I mistaken?
None.
No regular downs. He's been on special teams, but he's never been out. I mean, I think you guys have seen him at a podium. Sean, you're very aware of him. I think he has the demeanor to handle this. He's a very no-nonsense guy. I think he'll be fine out there, but you got to watch it. I mean, I don't want to underplay this. This is a pretty tough test for a lot of guys. Going to Minnesota under the lights and playing a Minnesota team that is very accomplished and is a program.
Yeah,
it's a program.
They know what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm intrigued at what that crowd will be like too. I mean,
sold out.
But is it really? Like, I talked to a ticket guy, and there's just patches of seats that are slowly being released on the secondary market. So is Minnesota kind of controlling the market by how they?
Oh, I see.
And then these tickets get dumped into the secondary market. That's a new trend that's happened around the country. So will it truly be 50,000+ people in that stadium? I'm intrigued because the students are just moving in that week there. So there will technically be students there, but it is Labor Day weekend and they don't start classes till Tuesday.
And it's a gold out. So we'll be able to see what the makeup is pretty easily.
Cool. Cold out.
All right. When we come back, we'll bring in Abby Barmore, who's been just working like a storm on volleyball coverage. She'll join us next here as we take questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, Abby Barmore joining us here for the mailbag. But before we get to the mailbag, Steve Sipple, this segment of the Husker Online Show is brought to you by
Sean, Larson Motors in Nebraska City. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram has never been easier. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people, real deals.
Tell you what, that Hummer line last week, we got a lot of play on the Hummer last week.
Well, I'm glad people are listening, Sean.
3rd and 1.
3rd and 1. Yeah.
Ram that Steve Sipple Hummer right in there.
Right. Just follow the lead blocker. You'll get there.
Right.
Move the chain.
What do you got, Abby?
Are you out, Rob?
No comment.
What do you got to lead us off?
Okay,
Abby?
here we go. Who needs to have a better performance on Thursday to beat Minnesota? The offense or the defense?
Boy, there's a question.
Probably the offense, because they got to find probably 27 points.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
I'll say offense. I'll agree with offense just because that's by far the bigger question mark right now. And I think their play, if they're turning the ball over and they're going 3 and out and that sort of things, I mean, it doesn't matter how well the defense plays. Like they're going to have a tough time.
Abby, I mean, it's a good question the person asked, but you always probably should include special teams in the discussion. Really the rule of thumb is if you play well in 2 of the 3 areas, if you win 2 of the 3 areas, you can win the game. So, if Nebraska's strong on defense and special teams, we'll have a great chance to win.
Okay, next one. What is the one thing that gives you confidence in Nebraska going into the Minnesota game?
The sense of the unknown. I think Jeff Sims and what he can bring, and Matt Rule. I just think you've got a head coach that has got a different approach, a different level of focus. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe what's been missing for Nebraska the last few years at times.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just say that overall, I think the defense is a lot farther ahead than I expected it would be. Going into the offseason. I mean, maybe that's a product of the level of play of the offense. I don't know, but the fact that they've been the better side of the ball pretty much all offseason, and you see all the single digits and the praise that's gone on at all 3 levels of that unit, it gives you a lot more optimism about that group than maybe you had going into the spring.
It does, until I see it, though.
Yeah.
I have to go with something more abstract, like an intangible, and that is hunger. I do sense that this is a very not that Minnesota's not. It's always about levels of hunger. Everybody's pretty hungry, but there's some people are just more hungry than others. Some teams are more hungry than others. My sense of Nebraska's veteran players is they are sick of losing. They are sick of us. The offensive line is genuinely tired of hearing us question them. I know they are. So I think Nebraska will have a hard edge and a kind of a prove it mentality, especially the veteran players. And there's a lot of them. I mean, this is a veteran team that's tired of losing. I think that matters.
What do you got next, Abby?
We've talked about this a lot, how the defense got 8 of the 10 single-digit numbers. Does that make you worried about the offense, that there's not as many single digits on there?
A little bit on the offensive line, but Piper got one. He's not going to wear one because he can't. But Gabe Urban's the one that surprised me. Just the amount of attention. So it leads you to wonder, like, Coach Rule and the coaches are pushing him, but does the locker room think of him at that same level?
Oh, yeah.
Because
it's a player vote.
It's a player vote. And I do think internally there are guys in that locker room that think Anthony Grant's pretty good. And they've seen both backs that the last 2 years at Nebraska and watched them closely. So Gabe Urban's got a big shoes to fill, I think, just to kind of prove it. And will Anthony Grant get that opportunity?
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is just the lack of established playmakers. Now, then you can conversely say, well, John Bullock got one. He's never played a down on defense. So, but I think it's a combination of the offense still very much evolving at this point to where the defense has, as far as what they've been able to do this offseason, proven it a lot more. And I think they just maybe have the personalities too, that are the guys that are stepping up and being those types of leaders to maybe that's still a work in progress on offense.
The player vote is always a little bit, you got to, if I were a coach, at least I'd make sure it's not just a popularity contest, you know? So I don't know what to make of that disparity. Again, I hate to say this, people get sick of it, but Sean alluded to it. We need a game. A lot of these questions we get, it just feels like I can't really answer that till I see him. I can't answer a lot of questions about Jeff Sims till I see him in a game against a Big Ten opponent. And here we are. I wouldn't say this if they're playing Northern Illinois. No disrespect, but we're going to know. You know what? We're going to know a lot.
Yep. I mean, a lot of questions
Thursday night. Yeah, we're going to know a lot Thursday night.
All right, Abby, what's next?
Is there a Husker playmaker on offense or special teams that could wow the fan base on Thursday and heighten the expectations for the season?
Billy Kemp. I just think his ability with 140 live punts fielded in games, returned or fair caught. I think he's got the ability not to run one back because that's hard to do, but just give them yards when they haven't been getting yards there. It feels like since DeMornay Pearsonell.
I'll say Fedoni. I think that his ceiling in that tight end role, we haven't seen Nebraska utilize its tight end nearly enough for a long time. And they got a guy now. They got a horse.
I think
he's healthy.
Rob.
I think
they do.
You talk about all these questions at wide receiver. They got some dudes at tight end. And Thomas Fedoni tops that list.
I'm most excited probably after Sims to see Fedoni. I just got to think that picture is going to look really good.
It just looks too good for it not to translate.
It not only looks good, but it sounds good. Fedoni is everything you want in a player.
Yeah, there's a reason Rule loved him from the minute he got on campus.
He's very interested in winning, you know, and playing football. He loves it. 6'6", 245, loves football, has a lot of ability. What could possibly go wrong?
All right, time for two more, Abby.
Okay. Which areas of the game or parts of the game are you looking for immediately noticeable improvement? Which parts should fans be patient on? And if there is a lack of improvement in what area, which one is concerning the most?
Hard questions to answer, but I would say the offensive line and how they push off the ball. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the first thing you're going to look at. Do they get a push? Do they create movement at the line of scrimmage? And do they protect? I mean,
protection on the edges.
Yeah. I mean, they say both sides of the trenches. I mean, where can the defensive line stop the run? How are they going to hold up against a very physical, established running offense? And then the offensive line, can they be a physical, established running offense and keep drives on schedule and protect the quarterback?
It would be a body blow to this fan base. Is it if you're watching the game and it's apparent that they can't hold up front? Because how do you fix that?
Right.
How do you fix it?
Where it's 2nd and 11. And they just can't run the ball.
Now, you'll be able to against some teams. It'll be okay against some teams that just aren't very good up front. You know, the non-conference opponents come to mind. But in the Big Ten, it would just be – it's hard to get better if you're at that part. Mm-hmm. If you're not holding up front, that doesn't usually get all that much better.
Yeah. The bigger concern, though, for me is offensive line. If that offensive line is not good, it's going to be a long year.
All right, final question, Abby Barmore.
Okay, this is one of our most popular questions every week before an away game. So what is your restaurant recommendation or activity recommendations in Minneapolis?
Activity.
All right. Well, this is either going to be the best idea ever or could be a long weekend for me, but my whole family's coming with me. I'm either going to be like, guys, what a getaway this was, or guys, I'm glad to be back on a regular routine here. But
so what are you going to do?
We're leaving Wednesday.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to go to dinner at Murray's Wednesday night.
Nice.
We're all at the same hotel, but I'll probably find you guys that are like, we have this 20-year history of this dive bar called Cuzzy's.
20-year history.
I've been going there since.
How old are you?
I've been going there since the 04 Dairy Queen Classic. That's how long I've been going to this bar.
That was a baseball tournament?
Yes.
The
at the old Metrodome.
Nebraska's been playing base. I covered. I don't know why, but I went and watched baseball up there once, and so we've been going to this little dive bar, kind of
Dairy Queen Classic,
the DQ Classic.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, real big.
But yeah, we've been to Manny's. You can't. I mean,
Yeah,
you got to bring your. I mean, it's a little higher priced places, but you're going to get a great experience.
you go to Manny's for the vibe. Like if you want to go to a nice elite steakhouse, like just for the atmosphere, you go to Manny's. But I've heard from multiple sources. I've never been to Murray's, but Murray's is right on the same bar food wise. It's just kind of got that older
1960s.
I heard it described as blue hair atmosphere.
Let's go.
Yeah, right up your alley.
More of a mafia type hangout. I've heard.
Okay.
Feel, you know.
So
That sounds more.
the food is right. They're just very different atmospheres. We got a question on the chat about like places to go around the Minnesota Stadium, and the obvious one is there's a BW3s right across the street. Like literally, you can see it from the stadium.
Living out of the box there, baby.
Ooh.
But if you go a couple blocks down the way, there's this bar that I really like called Stub and Herbs,
Okay.
and it's it's just kind of a cooler, low key bar. Really good burgers. I go there pretty much every time I go up there for basketball. So if you
Stub
don't
Herbs.
like BW, you've been there. BW3s, Stub and Herbs.
Wednesday night, can we go get steak?
Yes.
Okay.
go to
what-
Murray's.
Are you guys going to roll into Manny's or Murray's?
Yeah,
Let's go to Murray's.
whatever you want to do.
You wouldn't like Manny's.
Okay. Why is that? Why do you say that?
Too nice.
All right, that's fine, and we'll plan on that. That sounds good.
And then the Husker bar, if you're looking for like a place
Yeah,
that
good
you
call.
know Husker fans are going to be,
Yes.
the Lions Pub,
Yep. Lions Pub.
which is basically next door to Murray's. That is the designated Husker bar. And every time I've been there, and I think Rob and I have been there 6-7 times now,
Flooded with Nebraska fans.
and it's just like the hangout bar for all Husker fans. So
Yes.
Lions Bar Wednesday night, great spot if you want to watch the volleyball game, especially.
Oh yeah,
That will be the place to go for that. And, Buffalo Wild Wings, you can't go before the game, like Robin said. It's got an
You
outdoor
can't
beer
get any
garden.
closer to the stadium.
Like it is like the Champions Club of Minneapolis, but it's a Buffalo Wild Wings.
yeah, and you can't go wrong at Buffalo Wild Wings. Trust me, I eat there. I've probably eaten there 400 times. 400 times.
400.
All right, when we come back, we're going to close the show. Preview Week 1 Big Ten games. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett as I want to talk Big Ten games, guys. We didn't get any Week 0 Big Ten football, but we'll see everybody in action here on this opening weekend. 2 conference games, Nebraska, obviously, at Minnesota. And then Northwestern and Rutgers will kick off Big Ten coverage on CBS.
Let's go.
What a! I mean, I'm sure when CBS signed up for Big Ten games, that was the game they were just circling for their first ever game.
Well, there's at least some level of intrigue with the dumpster fire Northwestern has turned into and how they're going to respond.
Yeah, Northwestern has a chance for a good start to the season. Their early schedule sets. I know it sounds strange, but it sets up pretty well. I can't say it off the top of my head. Seems like UTEP's game number 2. Double check.
Oh,
that.
there is also another CBS game at 2:30 on Saturday. Ohio State, Indiana is technically the first Big Ten CBS game, and then that Northwestern game is Sunday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's probably an Ohio State 52-point victory there for
Yeah,
Ohio
they're gonna
State.
smoke
The
them.
spread is
smoke 'em.
30.
Yeah, cover.
It's at Indiana.
Ohio State cover.
There will be as many Ohio State fans in that stadium as there are Indiana fans.
I think so.
You're looking at some of these opening games. Fresno State at Purdue is intriguing.
Really intriguing.
Purdue, a 3.5-point favorite over Fresno State and West Lafayette. That of the lines, that is by far the closest line of the weekend. Every other line is a touchdown-ish or more.
Purdue, will have its hands full, I would think. I don't know a lot about Fresno State, but come on, these early games are really kind of hard to predict. Hudson Card I think he's impressed in camp. They feel good about him. I like the Purdue team. I know they lost quite a bit, but it's one of those stories of they lost quite a bit, but they have quite a bit coming back. The more I look at them, the more I kind of like them. They're a little scary. They're a little scarier than
All
you
on
think.
Hudson Card.
A lot of it, yeah.
I mean, he's going to make them go. If he's Aiden O'Connell level, then they're going to have a shot.
Be really surprised if he's Aiden O'Connell.
And
level.
Jeff Brom's gone.
Right.
I mean, come on. Like, Aiden O'Connell was as much an extension of Jeff Brom as anything, and just his ability to
I'll
draw
give you
up routes and matchups.
I know I'm a broken record, but we watched that game, and O'Connell was making throws that were breathtaking at times against Nebraska. I mean, he was threading needles that you just don't see very often at the college level. And he's in the NFL. He's doing
well. He had a good preseason.
Yeah, O'Connell's tough.
Okay, West Virginia at Penn State, Robin. That's the opening NBC game for the Big Ten. That's a night game, though, in State College. 20.5-point line. I mean, that's a lot of lumber for week one for Penn State.
I was surprised a little bit to see that line, but then I wasn't, because it is a top 10 Penn State team. They're going to be good.
And at night,
that's just,
there'll be a lot of sober people.
That's hard to play for anybody. So, I mean, initially you're like, whoa, but then you think about it, it's like, I could easily see that.
Penn State loaded up front. I mean, they have a great running back. We'll see what Drew Aller looks like out of the gate, but they're loaded for bear. Penn State. I mean, they're thinking college football playoff, as they should be.
They should.
That will be the best atmosphere of the weekend in the Big Ten, and I'm not even sure it's close.
You don't think Toledo, Illinois will?
Or Townsend, Maryland. Like Utah State at Iowa, that's a big line though, 25. I think we all are curious to watch Buffalo at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's a Saturday 2:30 game on FS1.
Yeah. For sure. Everybody's, a lot of eyes are on Wisconsin. What's that going to look like? They are the favorite in most people's eyes to win the division, even though they have these massive changes. What is that going to look like?
Mm-hmm. There's no line for Michigan, East Carolina. Which assistant coach is going to be the head coach?
It's 36 points.
Oh, I didn't see it listed here.
I'm on CB, a 51.5 point over under 36. So they're pretty much saying that East Carolina is hardly going to score. That brace yourself for this day. That game is only on the Peacock. Ooh. So can you imagine Michigan fans and just their anger that they have to pay to watch the game and subscribe to the Peacock app? That day will come, Husker fans. Yeah. We'll be having the same discussion.
The new world
where there'll be our Peacock game.
And the Peacock game.
That'll be, I don't know what to say about that. I think if I were a Michigan fan, I might just say, I'll just read about this one. I'll just go back to 1985.
I mean, there is some level of intrigue with no Jim Harbaugh, I guess. What is it? Does it matter? It won't.
I don't
like. What does it look like?
I don't think it will matter. I don't think so. It's not. I don't want to play that down. It's the head coach isn't there.
Vegas doesn't think it's going to matter.
Hey guys, Central Michigan on Friday night at Michigan State. That's only a 14.5 point line. I mean that's one to watch at least, because Michigan State's got a lot of different things going on there, and Central Michigan, at least on paper, appears to be a formidable team in the MAC. And that spread is barely 2 touchdowns. I mean, that is one where it could be an interesting game too.
Yeah. You won't have to prod me to watch any of these. I'm just glad it's back.
Yes, same.
Well, should be fun. Once again, we're going to be live in Minneapolis for post game. Hopefully around midnight or so, we'll hit the YouTube channel live. You'll be able to watch the rerun later on the YouTube channel for Husker Online, as well as on our podcast network. You'll be able to pick up the show. So looking forward to a great weekend of coverage. Also a great time to get Husker Online. We got a special that runs through the weekend. Get a year for over 50% off to Husker Online, or your first month for $1. For Steve Sipple, Robin Washington, Abby Barmore, I'm Sean Callahan signing off for another edition of the Husker Online Show.